Yeah, good question. I tend to think of philosophy as something like working towards conceptual self-consciousness or conceptual mindfulness. So there's a mindfulness exercise that people do when they imagine their thoughts like clouds floating above them. And when you do that, you kind of look at your own thoughts from a third-person perspective. And the idea is it gives you some sort of awareness of your own thinking processes that you wouldn't otherwise have, and then maybe a freedom to change them. And philosophy is a bit like that. So we are all kind of, we grasp concepts. There's a sense in which we have a grip on concepts, but there's another sense in which concepts have a grip on us. So the concepts we have are rules for reasoning in particular ways, and therefore rules for acting in particular ways. So in philosophy, what you try and do is look at your concepts from the side on, from a third-person perspective, and make explicit what those concepts are, make explicit the rules for reasoning that are encoded in them. And if you do that, that has a number of advantages, right? You gain there's an epistemic advantage. You gain an understanding of the concepts you use that you wouldn't otherwise have. But it also gives you an extra kind of freedom because if you can draw your concepts out into the light and become aware of what they are, you can then reason about those concepts. Think, are they good concepts? Are they bad concepts? Should we get rid of them completely? Should we modify them in particular ways? So in the philosophy of religion, this is how theorizing about religion from a philosophical viewpoint starts. So you ask all sorts of questions, things like, do you need God to have objective morality, or is divine foreknowledge incompatible with our freedom? If God knows what's going to happen in the future, does that mean we're bound to do it? Those sorts of questions, and lots of other questions besides that. And in a sense, these are metaphysical questions about the nature of reality. But the first step in addressing those questions is understanding the concepts involved. So if we wonder about whether divine foreknowledge is incompatible with human freedom, you have to ask, well, what is freedom? What is the concept of freedom we're working with? And what is divine foreknowledge? And what would that entail? And it might entail different things depending on your concept of God, whether God's in time or outside of time. So I think in philosophy of religion, the questions you ask tend to be metaphysical or epistemological, about the nature of reality, about how we can know what reality is like, and whether we can know that God exists or have justified beliefs about the nature of God, those kinds of things. But it all starts with conceptual self-awareness and trying to get a grip on the sorts of concepts we're using. I think it really depends on how you unpack the idea of faith, or how you define faith. Now, in a lot of religious thought, faith is just something like trust. And if faith is trust, then there's nothing about faith per se that means it won't be rational faith, right? So you might have trust in a friend to act in a particular way in a given situation. Well, that could be, you could have lots of justification for that, right? That could be a rationally grounded belief because you know what your friend is like, you know how they've behaved in similar situations in the past. So you have faith in your friend, but it's rational faith. So you can understand faith that way. There doesn't seem to be any intrinsic reason for faith to be irrational. It would depend what your faith was in and what sort of reasons you had for holding that faith or for having that faith. Now, sometimes faith is defined a different sort of way. Sometimes we always want to define faith as a belief which doesn't have any rational grounds. Now, it's not clear to me that that's how religious thinkers typically think of faith, but if you understand faith that way, then maybe you're going to have more issues just in virtue of the nature of faith, issues regarding whether that faith can be rational. Now, even then, the picture, I think, is a little bit complicated. So some people think there's a kind of Wittgensteinian idea, right? That there are some commitments you have that are so fundamental in some sense that they can't have rational grounds. So take your commitment to the idea that you're not kind of radically mistaken in all your beliefs, or that your belief-forming faculties, whatever they are, don't mislead you all the time. How could you get rational grounds for a belief like that or a commitment like that, it seems in principle impossible, perhaps, because it's so fundamental. So if you're already skeptical about, if you already have this very general, wide-ranging skepticism about your belief-forming faculties, you can't draw on any other belief you've formed to defend, to work your way out of that skepticism, to say that actually your belief-forming faculties do tend to lead you to the truth. So that seems like a commitment that's just so fundamental it can't have rational grounds of its own. You just have to accept it and then get on with it. Now, some people think that belief in God is like that. It's one of those kind of very, very fundamental commitments. It's so fundamental it can't have any rational grounds of its own. But that's kind of an open question, I think, in the epistemology of religious thought.